All right, guys, we need to do a little real talk moment, okay? You know they say know thy enemy, right? The thing is that Trump and his little regime are playing by a rule book that most citizens really don't fully understand, because why would we need to know these things? But now we find ourselves in a situation where we need to know these things, all right? So let's talk about what power he has, why we just saw that order get smacked down in Portland, and what that means for the rest of us. So let's start at the very bottom, right? So if your local police answer to the mayor and the city council, not the president, okay? Then you have the state police who work in conjunction with the local police and can work with federal agencies, but they don't answer to the government. They don't answer to Trump. They answer to the government, all right? So then that leaves the National Guard. Now, the National Guard, under almost all circumstances, only answers to that state's governor unless they are federalized. And the only way that they can be legally federalized is if there is a call for an insurrection, right? And what would that mean? That would mean that your local and your state resources cannot handle what's happening, and that the governor is saying like, hey, we need you to come in. Now, the president can federalize troops without the governor's approval, insert what happened in Los Angeles, but it is really frowned upon, which is why you saw that ruling get smacked down again in Portland this morning. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But I just wanted to lay the ground rules, right? So Trump doesn't have access to the local police. All right. He doesn't have access to the state police. Now, you may have local and state police who lean right and are playing ball with the Trump regime. But my point is they don't take their marching orders specifically from him. OK, the National Guard, again, under the control of the governor, unless federalized, and they cannot be federalized unless they meet the condition of insurrection, which I'll circle back to again in a second. So then that only leaves the military. Now, the military can't be weaponized against American civilians because of the Posse Comitatus Act. The only way that that can be challenged is in the event of an insurrection, and that would mean local, state, and the National Guard were basically compromised. They were unable to contain the situation, and as a result, we need to send in the United States military, okay? If you made it this far in the video, don't forget to leave the words, "Sorry, Trump, try again" in the comment section. Like, repost, and follow for updates. And you guys may want to follow me over on YTube because for some reason my videos are going missing over here. Okay. So why do I bore you with all that? Well, because when you understand that he doesn't really have control. Okay, so again, no, not the local cops, not the state cops, not really the National Guard, because every time he's trying to do it now, when he sent him into LA, ultimately in court that got thrown out, and they said, no, you got to give the troops back over to Newsom because there is no insurrection. That's an executive overreach, all right? And what we saw in Portland again today basically said the same thing. There's no insurrection here. The state and local cops are perfectly capable of handling this situation. You can't just be deputizing, federalizing National Guard so that they can act as your little toy soldiers, all right? And he doesn't have access to the military for the reasons that we've just discussed, okay? So what does he have access to? Nothing. He has access only to his federal troops, right? ICE, DHS, that. All told, that's like about 120,000. 120 to 160,000. That's it. Nationwide. So even though you see them kind of going in and they're doing all these very tactical strikes like what happened in Chicago, which was abhorrent, my point is that's why you see them doing these sort of surgical strikes where they're doing these huge exercises of force because it scares the shit out of people, and then people are like, oh God, I guess the president's gonna blah blah blah. But God, the point is they're only 160,000 at max of all of them nationwide. They don't have the upper hand here. So that brings me to what I think he's going to do, which I'm sure most of you can understand. But now that you understand what he doesn't have access to power-wise, you have to understand why. Now, I know, look, I get it. When they're doing the shit like they're doing, what happened in Chicago, and people throwing shit at the ICE cops, and I get the anger. Trust me, I feel the anger. I do. But here's the thing. In this country, because the way that the laws are set up, all right, they have protection, the federal agents, you don't, all right? And if they arrest you and you resist arrest, that's a felony, all right? So you can't play that way, but what you can do, all right? And again, I know it doesn't feel good, all right? Because I know the urge is to throw shit and scream and get mad because what they're doing is outrageous, and it feels like, who the fuck is going to protect us? We have to protect ourselves, and that's true, but the way you protect yourself, okay, you guys, you have to go out into the streets, tens of thousands of you, sit your asses down. Sit the fuck down. Hands like this if you need to, okay? Sit your asses down. All right? You see like them, they'll be driving the cars and they'll be pushing people back who are walking. Sit down, all of you. What are they going to do? Like completely obstruct the streets. Don't throw shit. Don't scream. Because here's what happens if you do that. Then the president, what he's going to do is he's going to keep doing these tactical strikes, right? Where he's dropping, using Black Hawk helicopters, because that kind of shit's very intimidating. Like I grew up around, in a military family, and I was married to military, so I'm very used to seeing all that military shit. But on whole, most civilians don't really see Black Hawk helicopters and, tanks and people in tactical gear all the time. It's very much a psychological warfare tactic, okay? So I want you to understand what they're doing so that you can be smart about the way that you fight back. Because what he's trying to do is get people so fucking incensed, right? That they basically start burning cities down, which I hope you guys are smart enough not to do that, where they're acting in such a way that Trump and his regime can insinuate, well, look, you have an insurrection there, a situation that you are not able to control with your local and state resources. So as a result, we're going to federalize the National Guard and send them in. And then even worse than that, potentially, right, send the military in, because the military can be used against citizens to suppress an insurrection. But insurrection is a very, very technical legal term, and he doesn't have it. You're allowed to protest. You're allowed to get pissed off. You're allowed to say what you want. And despite his silly little executive order, you're also allowed to burn the flag. That has been upheld by the Supreme Court. Executive orders are not law. They're like wish lists, okay? But it's not a law. So I wanted to make sure that I covered that. Who has what power? Who answers to what? Because, guys, I know it doesn't feel as good to go and just sit down. What the fuck are they going to do? They can't drive over you, and they can't arrest thousands of you at once. I mean, good luck. And it also gives you legal cover, right? Because if you were just peacefully protesting, you're completely within your First Amendment right. They can't say shit when it goes to court, because it will go to court. If people get arrested and whatnot for that, that's not illegal. All right. So it helps to protect you when groups like the ACLU swoop in to try to get injunctions or to file lawsuits. My point is, you guys, you cannot play this game. You cannot play his game. He's going to do everything in his power to use his teeny tiny little group of toy soldiers, okay, who are civilian. They're not the military, so they answer to him. They answer to the president, okay? So don't forget that. I'm sure you already know that. He's going to use them in every way that is incendiary and inflammatory to try to get the most primal response from us, so that he can engage in executive overreach, deploy National Guard into the cities, and potentially martial law. Because, guys, look, and I'm going to do a video right behind this one, but I won't push it out until later today, where I talk about, look, here's an actual game plan. These are the steps that we absolutely need to follow if you want to shut ICE down, okay? And throwing shit at their cars and all of that, that's not the way. So for right now, just please understand, because the president is aware that he only has this tiny little group of people. So he has to use them. They have to be as vile as possible to piss people off and get people riled up. So please share this with somebody that you know, talk to the people in your community about this. Make sure they understand what a tiny little group that he's playing with, even though it feels very powerful and large. All right?